Good morning and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. So today we are going to be talking about more Stormlight Archive. So this whole series is one of my favorite series of all time. So of course this series starts with The Way of Kings, which was immediately followed up by Words of Radiance. And today we are going to be talking about OATHBRINGER, the third book in the Stormlight Archive book series. Don't forget to stay tuned. Good morning, everybody. So I decided that I'm going to try and start doing more of these reviews without my glasses on, because I don't know about you, but the glare and reflection off my lenses on my glasses is driving me nuts in these videos. So I'm going to try and do more without the glasses on. We're going to see how that works. I know I look kind of weird. You're used to me with glasses, right? Well, so am I. But anyway, going forward, so we are talking about, as mentioned in the little bit of an intro there, we're going to be talking about OATHBRINGER by Brandon Sanderson today. This is the third book in the Stormlight Archive book series, and like all the other books before it, it is thick. There is a lot here, over 1,200 pages of epic story in this book. So right at the beginning of this book, first off, before we go any further, I thought I'd better mention here, this review might contain some spoilers. I don't know when, but I just want to talk about the things that I really liked about this book. So, warning up ahead, this review may contain some spoilers. Proceed with the video at your own risk. Alright, anyway, getting into that. So, we have this book, opens up 6 years ago, with the perspective of a character named Eshonai. Now, she is one of the Parshendi. So, she is one of the ones that is at war with the kingdoms of Roshar. And she saw how her people had been treated and held captive as slaves for many years, many generations. And so we see things a little bit from her perspective and why she has wanted to go to war with the rest of the world because of how her people were treated. So in OATHBRINGER, basically, this book flips everything on its head. Everything that's been built up so far, everything that we've learned about this world and its people, why they've gone off to war, and the different of the Parshmen or the Parshendi and their different forms that they take. Well, I guess they're all one species, but they take different forms, whether that's war form or mate form or docile form or whatever the case may be. We see Eshonai, how she has felt about her people being enslaved for generations upon generations. There's also a large focus on Dalinar and his story. So throughout the book we see more visions of flashbacks from Dalinar and things that happened in the past when he was the Blackthorn and he was a warmongering tyrant, essentially, and everything that had led up to the point where we're at now in the story. So between his War Day campaigns of conquering the world to hit the death of his wife and all that leading up to it. Throughout the book as well, we learn a little bit more about how fabrials were created. There are these devices within this world that Sanderson has built that enable you to do things with the rest of the world around you. So span reads are an example of these devices, which enable you to communicate across distances. So we learned about these fabrials, which essentially use the souls of captured spren in order to force them to do your bidding. So as we've learned from previous books, these spren, once bonded to an individual, they become a Knight Radiance, and that imbues them with these powers that they're able to do, such as, Kaladin's a power to fly, essentially, a windrunner. So these Spren have these magical powers within them, and when you capture them, you can force them to do your bidding, and that's kind of how the Fabrials came about within this story. And of course, we also now have Odium, which has been mentioned in previous books, but Odium, he's like the enemy, so I guess in a way that you could say Odium is effectively, would be this world's version of the devil. So he is the god that killed the supreme god, essentially. And Odium is waging war on the world, and he's got a champion with 9 shadows. So there's definitely this contrast. In the same way in a lot of modern day religiosity, you have the contrast of God's number 7 and the devil's number 6. Well, in this book series, in this world that's been created, we have that same kind of contrast, but it's between 10 being the righteous number. There's 10 kingdoms, there's 10 heralds, there's 10 orders of the Night Radiance, and then you've got 9, which is like the anti-10, essentially. In the same way that 6 is for the devil, 7's for God, we have 10 for God and 9 for Odium within this book. So Dalinar begins to question everything he's been taught regarding the Vorin Church and Vorinism and religion and the existence of God. Of course, his Spren, he's bonded as the Stormfather, which is like this sliver or shadow of the ultimate god, and of course Odium being the one that's forever at war. So it's these opposing forces of creation and destruction. Just the vast world that Sanderson has created is just awesome. Everything about it, I love it. It is just, waha, it's crazy. It is really, really awesome. If you have not read anything in the Cosmere, you need to go read everything Cosmere. I've read everything Cosmere except for White Sand, which is on my to-be-read list, but there's the Stormlight Archive is definitely one of the best fantasy series that I've read thus far, and of course Mistborn as well. Definitely have to include Mistborn in that, so that is also part of the Cosmere universe, as well as Elantris and Warbreaker. There's just a lot in there, and it's definitely worth picking up. I would definitely recommend Mistborn and Stormlight Archive are like the 2 biggest sets of books series within the whole Cosmere universe, so definitely would recommend that 100%. So yeah, go check it out. And of course in this book where they're down at Erethiu and they're trying to open up the Oath Gates in order to unite them, as Dalinar continues to hear over and over and over again, unite them. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this whole unite them aspect is that there are subtle hints dropped throughout this book that maybe unite them is not referring to just the warring kingdoms of Roshar, that it might not be just about Roshar. And here's a bit of a spoiler, so I'm just warning you now, a bit of a spoiler. But one of the things that we learn here is that Dalinar is the uniter of worlds and realms. So that's part of his bondsmith as far as his Knights Radiance go. That is part of one of his abilities that he got from bonding the Stormfather. So he's the uniter of worlds, and he's the uniter of realms, and he keeps hearing unite them. So we've got the different realms within the theory there, or in the world. There is the physical realm, the realm in which we live now, and then there's the cognitive realm. So the cognitive realm being the realm of thought and emotion, like the way our mind works. This is where Shadesmere is. It is the cognitive realm. Shadesmere also plays a vital role within this overall story. There's an entire part of it in which Kaladin and Shallan and Adolin and Elgar, they're all trapped in Shadesmere, and they have to find their way out. They make a dangerous trek across Shadesmere to try and find an Oathgate or some way back into the physical realm. But again, spoiler alert here. Spoiler alert, I'm telling you right now, if you don't want to hear spoilers, you need to fast forward or something, or stop now. But part of the way they got out of Shadesmere, or the way, is when Dalinar brought the realms together and united them, the cognitive, the spiritual, and the physical realm. This is how they got back from the one side of Shadesmere. So, and there's that hint there about him being the uniter of worlds. Definitely puts something in perspective. It kind of makes you think, it's like, well, where's Sanderson going with this? We just don't actually know yet. But what we do know is that Sanderson has said that he is going to be writing an entire series that will join or link all the worlds together within his greater Cosmere. There will be one epic final series, which I am really looking forward to whenever he gets around to writing that. But we know how long it takes him to publish some books. So that's just something we're going to have to wait a while for. And that is something that I am really, really, really looking forward to. So, of course, just going back a little bit here to some of the things going on with Dalinar is his memories are slowly coming back of his wife, what happened to her. And that's part of the flashbacks that we see within this book, is him remembering what happened to his wife and how she died. And this kind of sends him in a downward spiral back into his old alcoholic self, where he would drown away his misery in the wine and the drink. Just overall, it's something that he has to get through as a character, and this is what I'm loving Dalinar in this book. Really enjoying his arc and what's going on with him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where we go from here. Rhythm of War is going to be out in November. I've already got it on pre-order, and I am just pumped about getting Rhythm of War. The fourth book in the Stormlight Archive, I have no doubt, like the other ones before it, it's going to be a big, long book. That's kind of one of Sanderson's things. He likes to write big books all the time. Now, another aspect of the story that I really likes is we really start to understand the Parshendi perspective on what's going on. So, you know, Kaladin gets himself trapped, essentially. Well, not trapped so much, but he finds himself amongst a group of Parshendi who are basically now free. They're not slaves anymore. And there's a lot of mistrust there between the Parshendi and Kaladin. Like, the Parshendi don't like Kaladin in the same kind of way that Kaladin has no trust or love for the Light Eyes of his world. The Parshendi view him with a similar type hatred. And we kind of learned that what happened is they had become enslaved. Their minds were taken from them, utterly stripped and destroyed. Their willpower, their ability to think for themselves. This is what turned them into these Parshmen, which were basically mindless slaves. And they have a lot of resentment for that. And they're not happy with what's happened to their people and how they got to where they were, and the humans that had enslaved and destroyed their entire culture, their way of life, and was taken over from them. And when that Everstorm comes, everything changes. Absolutely everything changes. And Kaladin really starts to try to understand and see where the Parshmen are coming from. And he begins to question whether the Parshmen aren't just acting out of a sense of preservation. You know, maybe they're not bad guys after all. And that's kind of the fun of this, is you have all these different aspects of the story, and we're seeing both sides of the fight, both sides of what's going on, without being able to really get into a pure black and white type of dichotomy. It's just not there. And then, you know, even on the Parshendi side, they kind of have their own version of the Knights Radiant. But here's kind of the difference here, is they have 9 orders, whereas on the human side of things, there are 10 orders. And they kind of have their own version of that, called the Fuse. Now, the Fuse are ancient singers who have survived their death and are able to possess the living singers. Now, the singers are the names the Parshendi use for themselves. That is what they call themselves and their species. So they kind of form their bond during the Everstorm. So kind of in the same way that the Spren will bond with the Night Radiant during the high storms, the Parshendi and the Fused get their bond created during the Everstorm. So they are in effect the highest authority in the Singer or Parshendi society, and they have powers similar to Surgebinders as well. So it's kind of the mirror of the Knights Radiant, essentially. And that is kind of really interesting with respect to how that plays out within the story. And just going back, I'd mentioned about Dalinar being this bonder of worlds and realms. Just a quick quote from the book, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but like I said, there's a lot of things I really liked about this whole story and this whole book in general. The quote was, "Yours is the power of connections, of joining men and worlds." Stormfather to Dalinar had said that, foreshadowing the future Cosmere link between worlds, which I really think was kind of getting into that idea that some future series at the very least, and who knows, maybe it'll throw me for a surprise and happen in this series, but I'm thinking that's going to happen in a future book series that joins all the worlds together, that Dalinar, based on that quote, is going to play some vital role in that. So this is something that's really, really interesting to me, and I'm really looking forward to getting further into that. And just some other things that I wanted to quickly touch on as well with respect to this whole review is Shallon's kind of quirky. She's effectively, which I find kind of funny in a way, but at the same time I have to admit it could get kind of annoying after a while. Is Shallon has seemed to have developed this multiple personality disorder, where she is jumping between Radiant, Veil, and Shallan, and constantly flipping back and forth, and she seems to be losing some control over when she does that. And she distinctly addresses these three personas as distinctly different individuals, and it kind of derives from her light weaving ability, where she's created these different images in order to do different things, different personas, but it seems to be overtaking her and taking more control of her mind and way of thinking. And yeah, I mean, at times I admit it can get kind of annoying, so that's kind of an only drawback to that, I guess. But overall, definitely I don't think it's like detrimental in terms of enjoyment of the book by any means. And also keeping in mind, of course, that Sanderson can be a bit wordy at times. It definitely long and drawn out. I mean, there's definitely that aspect of it. You saw they're really big books, and he definitely likes to use a lot of words. And this could be this is sometimes maybe not a great thing for some people. They don't like those longer books. They don't like that drawn out stories. So the progression can be a little bit slower at times, and could be a bit drawn out. But overall, I absolutely am loving the Stormlight Archive. I will say over and over again that it is by far one of my favorite book series of all time. And I will say, of course, as well, that there's a lot of revelation within this book. There is some twists and turns there that will be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? The revelation about the origins of the Voidbringers. I don't really want to say what that is because I'm trying to be as little spoilery as possible, but the revelation about who the Voidbringers are and where they're from is just changes everything. Like, it really just flips everything on its head. So definitely go and check out this book, but you've got to start with The Way of Kings. I will try to remember to put my links to the reviews for Way of Kings and the rest of the series in the description below. But those are definitely my thoughts, my feelings on Oathbringer from the Stormlight Archive, Book 3 of the Stormlight Archive. Definitely worth your watch. So absolutely check it out. Go read it. Go read anything in the Cosmere. Just read Brandon Sanderson. It is awesome. I am absolutely loving it. One of my favorite book series of all time. So those are just my thoughts on Oathbringer from the Stormlight Archive. And I hope that you're enjoying these reviews. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you're on Goodreads, be sure to follow me there. You'll see my link to Goodreads in the description below. So definitely follow me or friend me on Goodreads as well. And until next time, keep on reading. Bye.